Andrew's perspective. Upon first hearing that grim poem, I wasn't sure when or even if its authors would find this place once again. Deep down, I had held out hope that they wouldn't. Knowing, however, what I did now, I could see that my optimistic wanting was in vain. "Are we truly sure these are the ones who destroyed the Ulmarans?" Jexel asked, his voice wavering with fright as around me the leaders of Arkisa discussed what we could even do. "Perhaps someone else received the message and is coming here to investigate." "Doubtful," I began, unable to look these Kafel in the eye as I continued on to explain. "Unless an entirely new civilization arose in practically the same place as this one, it is unlikely that they'd have received the signal so fast. We should assume, at least for the time being, that it's the same ones and formulate a plan accordingly." "Any ideas for what that plan might be, human?" Ewart growled, regarding me with a frustrated glare indicative of great anxiety. "I can rouse the Severan military to prepare a preemptive strike if such a thing is necessary." I'd hardly consider myself a defeatist. Under most circumstances, I believe there's always something one can do to at least mitigate a loss, if not prevent it entirely. This, however, was of a whole new ballpark entirely from the unplanned-for calculus tests and other such trivial trials which had helped me form such a stance. Putting it simply, I wasn't entirely convinced there was anything we could do here. Any alien race advanced enough to harness dark energy would be so far ahead of the Kafel, or even humanity, that to fight them outright would be an act of civilizational suicide. For the Kafel's sake, however, I had to at least appear confident. "We need to broadcast a warning to everyone," I demanded, my voice shockingly unwavering in spite of the turmoil underlying each breath. "Salkim, does this place have a radio transmitter?" "Indeed," hummed the Prime Minister, gesturing with a vestigial wing toward a tall cabinet positioned beside the door from which we had entered. "It should be in there." Quickly rocketing up from my seat and approaching the large piece of furniture, I flung open its doors with reckless abandon, and from within produced the shockingly light broadcasting set before promptly placing it down at the conference table's center. "Leaders of Arkisa," I began, my gaze rounding the table so as to meet, however briefly, with those of the planetary heads of state. "Each of you needs to send a message to your nations, the media, your advisors, anyone you can get a hold of. Command your military forces to hold their fire and watch the skies." "Are you mad?" Ewart crowed, standing up from his own seat as he regarded the crackling radio with indignation. "If these really are the genocidal aliens you claim them to be, then this may be our only chance to catch them off guard. If we all strike together, then they'll kill all of us," I spat, unable to further contain the volatile cocktail of emotions brewing within my chest. "We have to play nice and wait for an actual opening." Around me, the other Kafel leaders variously hummed in apprehension and chirped out affirmations. Nevertheless, when Salkim sent out the first message and began passing around the radio, not one of the other leaders went against my request. "This is High Commander Ewart. All Severan forces hold your fire and watch the skies." "People of Melekek," Prina chirped calmly, speaking into the radio with a tone so even that none could possibly detect her quivering posture. "Watch the skies and hold your fire." Leader by leader, radio signals went out from within the conference room, passing around the table before finally concluding with Jexal. "This is President Jexal. All corporate forces stand down and await further orders. I repeat, no ordinance is to be loosed without my say-so. Eyes on the sky, everyone. Something big's coming." "Now what?" demanded Ewart, pacing back and forth across the conference room like a pissed-off peacock. The hours following their collective announcement were dwindling fast, and with them our remaining time to prepare. "Salkim, I trust your pet here has a fucking plan." "Working on it," I grumbled, deciding it best to ignore for the moment the commander's jab as I allowed scenario after scenario to play out within my mind. The first move was yet to be made, yet from my perspective it seemed we were caught in checkmate. "It's only a matter of time before they show themselves. Perhaps we can try to talk our way out of this?" Suddenly, as though in a bid to answer my question, the radio receiver blared to life, startling just about every one of the alien leaders as we all looked to the small, chattering box which had apparently not gotten the memo that it was turned off following everyone's warning messages. "What the hell?" I murmured, reaching out with trepidation toward the device with the intent of adjusting its knob. Before I could do so, however, my action was interrupted by a voice from the radio.
"Be not afraid,"
began a feminine tone in Zintrish, following this statement with jumbles of nonsense which, judging by the other leaders' dumbfounded reactions, were probably translations of the same phrase.
"We come in peace."
It continued, once again repeating itself for each language. Nobody dared speak a word as the lot of us watched this radio box with utter bafflement.
"My name is Zimera, a representative of the Aragon Empire. Permission to land?"
Land? Where the hell is she going to? The conference walls rattled and shook as resonating from outside came a sound startlingly familiar to me, specifically that of a sonic boom. Shoveling the radio up into my arms, I sprinted as quickly as my legs would allow to the nearest window out in the hallway. Shattered glass crunched beneath my boots as I approached the window, and there beheld a terrifying sight. "Are you all seeing this?" I breathed, glancing for half a moment behind me as Arcasa's leaders maintained their distance from the window. Nevertheless, it was clear by their gasps that they, too, could see what I did. Hovering barely 20 meters above the ground with no visible propulsion to speak of, was a massive spherical object about half the size of the Grand Embassy itself. Floating around the central orb on staggered axes were rings of unknown metal that sloshed about within their rigid shape like a contained liquid, creating upon their surface pools of absence which revealed beneath the ring's surface circles of ethereal blue light, almost resembling eyes. Once again, parting the radio's static hiss, that voice from earlier reappeared.
"Do not be afraid,"
it repeated, the orb above us steadily hovering toward the ground until one close enough could reach up and touch it.
"I come in peace. Please permit my landing so we may converse in person."
"Andrew!" the Prime Minister squawked almost angrily, walking forth over the shards of broken glass and placing his claw upon my shoulder. "Do not permit them to land! That's an order!" "Why you here?" I asked, my Zintrish fluency waning beneath the sheer panic bubbling up inside. For a time, the only sound to be heard here was the crackling radio. Honestly, I half expected to open fire then and there, but instead the orb continued its silent descent before finally coming to a stop with its outermost ring mere inches above the ground.
"I bring with me good news,"
the voice began anew.
"Permit me to land and I will tell you all that you wish to know."
In the end, my decision to disobey the Prime Minister and clear their landing was one of pure pragmatism. Kafl's civilization wasn't equipped to battle aliens this advanced, and so our only option, it seemed, was to talk with them. "You're free to land," I whispered, dreading each word of that sentence as the hopelessness of our situation began to sink in. "No, there's got to be something I can do here." Immediately, the spherical starship came to rest upon the ground as its rings rearranged themselves into a staircase, and from its center slid open a previously imperceptible door. My heart rate quickened as out from the doorway strode a figure which my mind at first told me was human. Her facial and bodily structures seemed unreasonably analogous to those of Homo sapiens. However, as I looked upon this being, it became increasingly clear that she could be no human. Standing just under 3 meters tall, this figure towered over even the Kafel. Her skin was like brass, and upon the sides of her head were horns resembling those of a ram. One would expect, given the presence of stairs between herself and the ground, that it would befit this figure to use them. Clearly, however, this alien did not think so. Instead, I watched in awe as from her back extended 4 pairs of wings, allowing her to delicately flutter to the ground. Never before had I seen something so angelic yet so very demonic. Though stunningly beautiful by human standards, nevertheless could I feel exuding from her an overpowering aura of menace. "Hello there!" the alien giggled happily, regarding the lot of us with a calm, tight-lipped smile. "As I said before, my name is Zimera. It is a pleasure to meet you, leaders of the Kafel." "What do you want?" cawed Salcom, backpedaling half a step as though preparing to trade blows with this being. If nothing else, I can admire the bravery. "Why, to help you, of course," Zimera exclaimed, producing from a pocket on her crisp uniform some kind of personal communications device before pressing a few buttons, and from it displaying a hologram of some sort depicting a battle between Zintrish forces and Providence. "We have learned a great deal about your species from the radio signals you put out. It would seem you are currently locked in conflict with a group known as Providence, yes?" "That is true," hummed Jexal, regarding this being with some mixture of fear and fascination. "Why is it you'd want to help us?" he asked. "My people are stewards of life in this galaxy. Looking at this conflict, we've decided that your side should be the victors. All you must do is say the word and we will handle things from there." For the longest time, nobody spoke another word. Every last one of us knew what these aliens were capable of. We all understood the consequences of displeasing them. Eventually, however, Salkim worked up the courage to speak. "We will need more time to discuss this. I hope you don't mind." "Of course I don't," the Iragan cooed gently. "We will give you an S3 to decide. Until then, however, I must borrow your alien friend. We have much to discuss." "Absolutely not," Salkim glared, pulling me backward before stepping between myself and the Iragan. "I will not simply hand over one of my people to a genocidal alien race like yours." "Genocidal?" Zemera repeated, her expression becoming rather more crestfallen upon the notion. "I assure you we are no such thing. Besides, you have my word we will return him to you unharmed next Estria when you make your decision." Finally, the rest of the leaders seemed to gather their nerves enough to participate. "No offense, Zemera," began Prina regarding the alien with a polite bow. "But we're going to need more than your word if we're to surrender such an asset." "Understandable," Zemera hummed, pausing for a moment as though in deliberation before finally going on. "Hand him over to me, and in exchange I will leave for you one of ours. They will tell you everything you wish to know about us. Deal?" she asked, extending her pointer finger down toward the gaggle of global figureheads. "As I said," Salkim growled, attempting fruitlessly to swat away the Iragan's hand. "I will not simply allow you to—" "It's a deal," I sighed, gently nudging the Prime Minister out of my way before promptly stepping forth toward the Iragan. "I'll come with you so long as you can promise me the Kafel's safety." Again, Zemera giggled happily, regarding the Kafel as though they were children playing a game with her. "Not a problem," she concluded, reaching down toward me and gently grabbing onto my hand before guiding me towards her ship.